I'm going to speak very, very briefly, if that's possible for me, to the point of a gross mistake that I see occurring in much student writing. Okay, and gross meaning flagrant and extreme, and that's when we refer to a past event, an event that's happening in the past, we use the present tense to refer to it. So this is very common, to use the present tense to refer to something that happened in the past. And you must not do this in writing unless for some sort of stylistic reason, and you're very conscious about it. You choose to use the present tense. Otherwise, you should always use the past tense when referring to past events. Now, one of the reasons I think that this occurs is because we do it in speech. Very often we lapse between the present tense and the past tense in referring to past actions when we're speaking, and that is in colloquial usage. So, for instance, a very common type of phrasing is something like, I was sitting in my home office the other day, and my son comes in, and he asks me if he can borrow the car. And I tell him, not till you finish the homework, and so on and so forth. So I go on. But you notice how I lapse into the present tense. Of course, I was sitting, that's past tense, but my son comes in, present tense, asks me, present tense. If he can borrow, you see, that's present tense. And so we do this in speech, but you must not do this in your writing. In your writing, the correct way to phrase this, this little narrative would be, I was sitting in my home office the other day, and my son came in and asked me if he could borrow the car, and I told him, so on and so forth. So you see, in writing, you must be very careful that when you're referring to past events, that you always use the past tense, and use the correct tense in all other forms as well. One of the most egregious examples of this kind of error, egregious being a word that means bad, or flagrant, or even evil, is, though you might question whether faulty verb usage can really be classified as evil, but we'll save that discussion for another day. But the most egregious violation of the rule to be consistent, and that's a rule in language usage, to be consistent in the application of the verb tense, is when the writer flips back and forth between the past and the present. So as we have in the example right here, I was sitting in my home office the other day, and my son comes in and asks me if he could borrow the car, and I tell him. So notice that I've highlighted in red the past tenses, and in blue the present tenses. And so the reader is flipping back and forth and perhaps confused. And again, doesn't cause us a problem in speech, but it can cause a problem in writing that we should not allow. Because remember, whenever you confuse the reader, you lose him or her. Okay, so your objective is to make your writing crystal clear, like as lucid and clear as free-running water, and not toxic spill. Okay, so anyway, control yourself, or at least your writing, and stay consistent in your application of verb tense, and especially when you're speaking about an event that happens in the past, use the past tense.